Welcome everyone to our latest Site Leaders Connect Insight interview. I am excited to have Stacy Johnston with us today. Stacy, can you share with us your name, your role, and why you decided to become an educational leader?
Sure. Hi, I'm Staceys Johnston. I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada. I've been teaching in the Clark County School District for almost 20 years. I'm at 19.5 this year. I've been a high school English teacher for most of that time, but I have had some kind of interesting experiences that led me down this kind of forked path, I guess. I did a year as a teaching ambassador fellow with the U.S. Department of Education. So I kind of got to see, how things work all the way at the top. And that led me to a year of residency at my own State Department of Education as well. So I got to get down to state level policy, and I'll be returning to the classroom in the fall to one of our newer schools. It's a recovery high school here in Las Vegas, and I'll be teaching high school English to the students at Mission High School. So I think that just kind of looking at the evolution of our profession and how important it is for teachers to be at the table just kind of led me to, pull up a chair.
Excellent. Well, thank you. I love that you have that policy perspective. I had for the first time, some work that I was able to be a part of at the state level here in California, and it was fascinating to see that other side. So I'm excited that you'll be able to share some of that insight with our network here. So can you share with us, talk about a little bit about student voice and what insight do you have to share that may be valuable to our leaders that are listening?
Yeah, sure. I think like a lot of teachers, you kind of learn from your mistakes, unfortunately, and as a new teacher, you're just trying to claw your way through and learn as you go. And probably, 4 or 5 years in, I felt like I had a really good stride. I was good at making relationships with the kids. I felt like, my ideas were good, but it took another few years and actually some work with this outfit called the Southern Nevada Writing Project. They have a summer institute. They're from like an arm of the National Writing Project, if you're familiar. But taking that institute back in 2014 just gave me the time to really think and reflect and write about what I do and how I do it. And I had an epiphany that, I was in charge of 200 kids every year, and they were smart and they had a lot of potential, and I shouldn't be the only one calling the shots. So I threw everything away, really. I started from scratch, years and years and years into teaching, and really started to, practice what I preach when I use the word community and bring my kids into, what books would fit your interest and needs, and what's your voice and how do you want to use it. And I think it really evolved me as a teacher. It really changed the way that I connected with kids. It made me better, and so I've stuck with that, and it seems to really work. I mean, it can be some hard work, and it can be a little daunting because they're teenagers, but getting their input has really changed things. Sometimes we don't even notice what we're doing, even though we think it's good. It just takes one kid to say, hey, can we read a book by a woman? Or can we read, some modern poetry? And then you realize, oh my goodness, like that's the hole that I haven't filled in a really long time because I've been just doing what I'm doing. So I think that's really important, like bringing the kids in, especially at the high school level, because, we're trying to teach them to be independent adults. So we should value their voice.
Absolutely. So if there are administrators out there that want to inspire their own teachers to make this shift, to give students voice, and first of all, like you're saying, to solicit their input, how would you recommend they go about that conversation? I know that you said that you were inspired by a writing project, but if there's a leader out there that's trying to figure out how can they inspire their teachers to make that shift, how would you recommend they start that conversation?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's very timely in that there's a lot of civil unrest in the education world right now. And, I think a lot of people think that, it's all about dollars or whatever, but I think at the root of it, it's really about the fact that our 3 million teachers are educated professionals, and they've got ideas and they have methods, and they're not always the ones that are being asked, what changes should we make, or, how can we approach this? And I mean, I know personally and professionally, I spent as much time in college as a doctor, and I would never be comfortable with somebody handing me like a scripted curriculum. Because, why? I was the first in my family to go to college. I have 2 degrees. I think I can, offer some input. So I think that's really important, is to give teachers autonomy and work with them, and, just be open to some new ideas. Innovation is scary, change is scary, but at the same time, your school will only be better for it if you get some great ideas and some new methods that are going to help, create solid community with your teachers and staff, as well as with your students. So, I mean, I think that's really the first step. Give the teachers space to experiment and try things, or at least sit down and ask them, if you could do it your way, how would you do it? Or, what I learned a lot from the writing project is this, teacher to teacher mentorship, and teacher as professional development presenter, that we know stuff. And, why bring in someone from outside, to talk to us for 2 hours about all the stuff we should do, when you probably have 75 people in your building who could all share a really great best practice. So I really think it's just about tapping into the talent that you have.
I love that. And I agree that the minute that we tell teachers they have to have fidelity to a certain program or curriculum or whatever, we devalue them, because they are professionals and they have gone through a lot of schooling to get to this place. So I like what you say. How do you think that policy fits into that sort of a mindset? What have you seen at both in your state at that level, as well as the national level, as far as there are leaders that are fearful of allowing their teachers that much autonomy because they believe they have to have these research-based practices, and that they need to lead with, they feel that it's coming from the top. And so how would you respond with your experience with policy work? How would you respond to that?
Well, I'll just start by saying I think it's why it's important that, teachers are really vocal, because as a teaching fellow with US Ed, what really surprised me more than anything is that I wasn't, just kind of sitting in the back listening to them talk policy. We were sitting around the table with, the Secretary of Education, and at the time, John B. King, and he was asking us, so what works at your school? And what do we need to know about your state and your classrooms? I mean, he was really open to hearing, the real nitty-gritty stories and the real truth, the good, bad, and the ugly. And I think sometimes teachers think, it's safer to shut your door and just carry on than it is to advocate and be vocal. And at least at that level, the fellowship exists for a reason. There's not teachers in every corner of that place. There's thousands of employees, and I think you could count the actual people who spent time in a classroom on 2 hands. So it's important that we're out there kind of telling them, hey, the days of straight rows and chalkboards are over, and this is what it's really like in a classroom with technology and innovation and everything. I know that the current administration uses the word innovation a lot. And so I think it's important for teachers to kind of give their 2 cents, whether they're writing about it, whether they're, talking to their legislation or whatever, but kind of defining what innovation means from a practitioner standpoint, because we have different interpretations of what that means. As far as like policy, every state is different. And so I think it's important too to recognize like what works here may not work there. And again, I think it just boils down to not being afraid to speak up. I mean, there's so many avenues. There's different fellowships to get involved in. There's different ways, like, like this site, just networking with people, using social media, whatever you're doing to just kind of say, hey, that's a great practice for people in state over here. But where we're from, this is what we need. And this is what my kids are like. And so, I really just think the conversation is important. And that's why I try to plug in and do as much writing as I can, because, I just try to say, hey, I teach at a school that's unlike yours. And even though you have great ideas and I have great ideas, we have different needs. So where can we meet in the middle? Or where can we share like universal best practices without trying to, make everything, like I said before, kind of this like one size fits all. Here's the method to teaching all the things, and really realize that, every kid, every teacher, every state, every classroom is different.
I love that. And I think that's so important. You mentioned that you do a lot of writing about your experience, and I love that you talk about the context, that in your writing you are letting teachers know that this is what works for me, what works for you, and let's talk about it. What do you do with that writing? Where do you publish it? How do you get it out there? How can people find out about that and hear your viewpoint? And what do you recommend for them if they want to go the same route?
Well, I am all about shameless self-promotion. So I have my blogs posted on Medium. I put one up about a month. I have everything housed on a Facebook site called This Teacher's Journey. And then I throw the links out to every social media platform. So I put the hashtag out on Twitter, on Instagram, and basically text my latest blog to any living human being that I know and say, hey, you want to read this? I started with guest blogging, just kind of meeting different people and saying, hey, I'd love to, write for your blog or whatever, just to get my feet wet. And it took me a while to say, like, do I have it in me to do this, consistently all the time? And I launched my blog, I think 2 years is coming October, and with a goal of trying to post once a month, and then kind of slowly moved them over to Medium to see if I could, share the word a little bit wider. So I think the best way to find it would be on Twitter at SJ Teaches, or just search the hashtag This Teacher's Journey, no punctuation or anything, because I tag it everywhere I put it, and it's probably a good way to zero in and find it. And I'm on Medium as S Johnston.
Excellent. I'm curious. I've kind of upped my consistency of blogging lately, and I've seen some great benefits for myself as well as for those that seem to be, reading it and interested in it. But my question is, what has that done for you as an educator? Have you noticed any personal benefits in blogging and sharing your thoughts that may be helpful to others that are thinking that I'm not sure if this would be valuable to me myself?
Yeah, sure. I mean, first and foremost, it's really cathartic. It feels good to get some of the frustrations or the celebrations or whatever it is out. I mean, it's always kind of been a thing that I did, but teaching for 20 years, it's a long time, and it can be really isolating, and schools are really siloed. And so I just feel like sometimes it's all a blur. I don't want to get to that point where it's Groundhog Day, just walking into the classroom, walking out of the classroom. So writing about it kind of helps me capture some experiences I've had with learning, with failing, with special students, special opportunities that I've had. So it's kind of like a diary in a weird way, just writing these stories. What it's helped me do is connect with a lot of other educators, because I think the best thing anybody can say is, your blog resonated with me. I felt that way too, because we're not by ourselves, even though I think we feel like we are a lot. So when someone says, oh, you've inspired me to really look at my work-life balance, or, oh, I really never thought of, teaching like that, or, even the littlest thing, even if it's just like a, hey, thanks for writing that. It makes me feel like, yeah, thanks, because I felt that way when I've read other people's work and when I've read books, and, just that kind of moment to say, like, oh, I'm not the only one, there's someone else out there who's just as crazy as I am. And I think that's important, if we can't network with people in our buildings sometimes, that we find, even virtually, that professional learning network that, understands. It's a unique profession.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that's almost even more important for administrators, because it's even more isolating many times than even teachers that can at least go next door, hopefully, and talk to another teacher. So I love that you say that. I think that's what you spoke to, was how this sharing your stories have helped you as an individual, but have also helped others and make those connections. And I would, I, like you, love to write. And so for us, blogging is an awesome way to share a story. But for those that are listening that say, that's not really my thing, I have seen many people that do quick quick like little podcasts, or they do they share their stories in different ways. And so I think that it's important that whoever you are and whatever your thing is, that you share in some way, both for your benefit and for those, so for other people. So yeah, thank you, Stacey, for sharing that. And I love that you talked a little bit about the Personal Learning Network as well. And how can you already shared your Twitter handle and your blog information, the hashtag, but are there others that you would recommend that people follow, or places that they could go to become better connected or learn more about student voice, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, if people are still hesitant to get on Twitter, I don't know why, but if they were, I think that's like a great place to start. My Twitter is just my professional media. You know, it's not the place where, you know, you post cute pictures of your kids doing cute things or whatever. It's solely my professional social media. And, you know, I've learned about so many cool conferences or resources, or, you know, actually that's how I found the Teaching Ambassador Fellowship with the US Ed, is through Twitter. And, you know, there's just a lot of things there. I mean, people just dumping awesome information all day long. And, you know, I'm not shy. I reach out and I say, hey, that's a great idea. Can I learn more about that? Or if I hear someone say like, oh, teaching Hamlet for the first time, ideas, I'm the first one to say, you know, what's your email? I'll send you an entire Google Drive full of stuff. I think it's important. So, you know, it's a really safe place to start, because you can choose how much you want to engage. And if you just want to lurk and follow and read, or if you want to get out there and be a little more engaging, there's a lot of teachers writing on Medium as well. So if you go on Medium and you just kind of, you know, search teachers or teacher leadership or education, you're going to find, you know, hundreds and not thousands of writers that are all reflecting on their experiences or sharing great ideas and methods and stuff. So, you know, and mostly free, unless you're a real voracious reader, then you got to chalk up some cash. But if you just, you know, like to check it out every once in a while, I think it's a great place. I've got a few bloggers that I like to read myself. I'm actually making sure I look it up right so I can share my friend Kyle's blog. He's an ed tech guy, but he's been all over the place: administration, special education. He's got like all kinds of tools, and he runs a really cool podcast with another administrator that used to be a teacher named Ben. So, you know, I've learned a lot from them, and we share back and forth a lot of our writing. And I was lucky enough when I was traveling to cross paths with them one time and be on their podcast. So that was really cool. So if you're on Twitter, you can follow Anderson EdTech and the Beer EDU podcast, because they've got this thing where they meet people in breweries and they sit and, you know, share a little water, wine, or whatever with them and talk education. So, you know, I definitely check them out and see what they have to say, because they've connected with tons of other educators all across the country.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm so excited that, because I have not met you in person, but Kyle is actually a very good friend of mine. So I think that's great. So cool that he got a shout out. Yeah, and I've been on his podcast as well. And I also enjoy his blog. So yeah, definitely. Awesome. Yeah, so I would definitely encourage people to listen to that. And that just shows how connected we are. Yeah. You find that you start knowing a lot of the same people when you're in this, when you become connected, especially via Twitter. So certainly, well, Stacey, I want to thank you so much for being here. I want to remind all of our viewers here to check out siteleadersconnect.org, where you'll find a searchable database to connect with so many, over 100 educational leaders that have decided that they want to share their information with you and connect. So we have Twitter handles. If they have a website or a blog, that's on there as well. And it's searchable by their interest and expertise. So definitely check that out. And Stacey, I want to thank you so much for being with us. Do you have any last words of inspiration for those that are watching? Well,
we're coming up on summer break. I know that this is the last day in my district, and I know, you know, we all kind of vary, but we're getting there. I think it's really important to take this time You know, we get wrapped up in professional development. We get wrapped up in planning for next year. We get wrapped up, and it's all really important. And I'll be using my time for that too. But I think we have to allow ourselves that moment of just being a normal human, non-educator type of person, whatever that means. Sit by a pool, read a fun book, binge watch something, whatever, because it's hard work, and we're going to start it all over again in a few weeks. It goes a lot faster than we think. So I'm looking really forward to just kind of unplugging, being with my family, and, letting them be the 110% that I give, instead of, what I have to give to the classroom every day. So, just enjoy it, take it. It's not selfish. Take care of yourself.
Thank you. Yes, self-care is so important. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you again, Stacey, for being with us. And again, catch us next time on our next Insight interview. Check out the playlist to view all of the Insight interviews. And again, more learnings and connections are available at siteleadersconnect.org, and of course on Twitter, as Stacey said. Thanks so much.
Thank you.